Today, we're digging into something that is literally changing the ground beneath farmers' feet. We're talking about a huge shift in thinking, away from fighting the soil and towards partnering with it, treating it not as just dirt, but as a living, breathing ecosystem. Let's get into it. So let me start with a question that might challenge, well, centuries of thinking. We all know the image of the plow, right? It's a symbol of farming, of progress. But what if that very tool, the act of turning over the earth, is actually doing incredible damage to the foundation of our entire food system? And this really gets to the heart of the matter. On one side, you have the old way, conventional tillage. It sees soil as just stuff, an inert substance you have to break apart. And the result? Depletion. But on the other side, we have conservation agriculture, which sees the soil as a living thing to be nurtured. The action isn't mechanical, it's biological. And the result is resilience. This is the paradigm shift we're talking about. Okay, so let's get into the science of this living soil revolution. Because to really understand why not plowing is so powerful, you have to understand what's going on at a totally microscopic level. It all starts with these things called soil aggregates. Now, the best way to think of them is like tiny, fragile cities where all the microscopic life in the soil lives. These little clusters are held together by natural glues made by microbes, and they are the absolute building blocks of healthy, fertile soil. So what happens when we plow? Well, it's basically like setting off an earthquake that shatters those little cities. It breaks the aggregates apart, and all the carbon that was safely stored inside gets exposed to oxygen, and that triggers this chemical reaction you see here. Boom. The carbon combines with oxygen and escapes into the atmosphere as CO2. Plowing literally makes the soil exhale its life force, and that contributes to greenhouse gases. And by not plowing, we protect our crucial underground allies, like these arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi, or AMF. I know it's a mouthful, but just think of it as a vast natural internet for plant roots. It's this incredible fungal network that extends a plant's reach, helping it find water and nutrients it could never get to on its own. It's absolutely vital. And the payoff for protecting that network? It's staggering. In parts of the world prone to drought, just leaving the soil alone and letting these fungal networks do their thing can increase the amount of water the soil can absorb by 30 to 50%. I mean, in a world facing more and more extreme weather, that's a total game changer. So, not disturbing the soil. That's step one. That's the fundamental pillar of conservation agriculture. But really, it's just the foundation. Let's see how the whole system builds on top of that. Now, you're probably wondering, okay, but if you don't plow, what about all the weeds? It's a fair question, and no-till has a really clever answer. Instead of using brute force, it uses biology. Leaving old plant material on the surface acts like a natural mulch, blocking sunlight and slashing weed germination. And even cooler, some plants actually release their own natural weed killers. It's called allelopathy. They're basically defending their own turf. It's about working with nature, not against it. All right, so we've stopped breaking the soil apart. The next big piece of the puzzle is actively feeding it. This is where cover crops come into play. You can think of them as the quiet architects that are constantly building up soil health. Oh, I love this slide. It's like assembling a superhero team for your soil, right? You've got your legumes. They're the nitrogen fixers, working with bacteria to pull fertilizer right out of the air. Then you have the grasses, the carbon builders, whose huge root systems create amazing soil structure. And then you get the crucifers, the disease suppressors, which actually release compounds that can clean the soil of pests. And the power of this team is just immense. Legumes alone can add up to 200 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare. That is a ton of free natural fertilizer, which means farmers need way less of the synthetic stuff. And here's where it gets really cool. When you start mixing these different types of cover crops together, the synergy is incredible. These multi-species mixes can actually boost the total amount of microbial life in the soil by a staggering 20 to 40%. You're not just feeding the soil, you're building a diverse, thriving underground city. So we've stopped disturbing the soil, and we're actively feeding it. The third pillar is all about strategy. It's about using crop rotation to build long-term health and, crucially, to break the cycles of pests and diseases. Let's walk through a super simple example. Year one, maybe you plant a cereal like wheat. It uses up some nitrogen, but it leaves behind all this carbon-rich stuff that builds up the soil. Then, year 2, you follow it with a legume, like lentils. And they do the exact opposite. They pull nitrogen from the atmosphere and pump it back into the soil. By constantly switching things up, you confuse the pests that like only one type of plant, and you create this beautiful natural balance of nutrients. Now, all of this sounds great, right? But you might be thinking, does this only work for massive, high-tech farms? And the answer is absolutely not. A huge part of this revolution is making sure these ideas are accessible to everyone, especially smallholder farmers around the world. So instead of giant, expensive machinery, this movement focuses on what are called scale-appropriate tools. We're talking about small seeders you can attach to a two-wheel tractor, simple drills pulled by an animal, or even hand-operated planters. These tools let farmers get seeds in the ground with almost no soil disturbance and without having to make a massive financial investment. And for these smallholder farmers, the results are just life-changing. We're seeing yield increases up to 20%, cost savings on just preparing the land of up to 50%. And this one is so important, especially for women farmers, a reduction in back-breaking labor by up to 40%. This isn't just good for the environment, it's an economic revolution that really empowers communities. This quote here really says it all. This isn't just about a new gadget or a different planting schedule. It is a deep philosophical shift. It's a commitment to a cycle that recognizes that everything is connected. The health of the soil, the plants, the animals, and, of course, us. So what's the big takeaway here? It's that the ground beneath our feet isn't just dirt. It's a living foundation. And the ideas behind conservation agriculture give us a roadmap to not just maintain it, but to actually make it better. The only real question left is, are we ready to build on that foundation?